something that I heard that has been really helpful for me is the idea that my kids need to view me as an expert on sexuality.
Yes.
And I would not say that I'm an expert on sexuality. Like, I have friends that are licensed sex therapists. That's not me. I do not have degrees in the wall for that. But compared to their third grade peers,
Mhm.
I am what leagues better of an expert than they are.
Welcome to thesextalk.com, where parents can go to get clear and confident to have the sex talk with their kids.
Welcome to another episode of the Sex Talk podcast. I am excited to have a special guest with me today, Andrew Yates. Brother, I am excited you are here with us today. Man, your perspective for listening parents is going to be so valuable for listening pastors. Why? Because, guys, my buddy Andrew, he is a seminary staff member. He is a pastoral leadership guy. He is a ministry leadership guy. And first and foremost, he is a husband and a father. So, Andrew, thanks for being with us, man.
And Nick, I cannot tell you how pumped I am to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited because, we hear from other parents at times, but man, I really think if you're willing, let's start with your lens as a pastor, as a man who has spoken into the pastoral leadership space. If you're a pastor listening right now, what would you say around, hey, we need to raise up our children with a biblical sexuality? What does it look like from a pastor's perspective?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think a theme of my life has been kind of being out of my depth, I would say.
Okay.
Um, uh, just being thrown into a space where, man, I was volunteered, I was available, and people like, great. Well, how about you run it? I'm like, whoa, what? And I think that's been a theme as a pastor, but that's also kind of how I feel about parenting as well. Um, I uh, I realized when I first held my daughter in the emergency room that I had a whole range of emotions that I wasn't aware that I had.
Mm,
Uh, just a depth that I didn't know existed,
mhm.
and the things that my daughter and my son have raised, issues that they've brought to me from elementary school. I'm like, I was not prepared for this. All right, let's see what we can do. And I think the feelings that I had, I'm sure a ton of pastors can resonate with like 2020, the COVID, all the drama
Yeah.
and all the issues, very significant. These are unprecedented, and I was not set up to thrive uh, by the curriculum and the books that I'd been handed that were going to prepare me for ministry. So I think
Mm.
that's kind of the theme that I've seen. In hindsight, kind of fault, not a yeah. I think having I wasn't alone. The temptation to feel like I was alone was there for all of it, or and I had to have the answers. And I think I feel that a lot as a parent. Um, but I think that's probably not the right place. The Christian place is I don't have what it takes. But the temptation is to be the guy who knows and has the answers. So I'd say that I don't know. I don't know. Does that resonate with anything you've seen or felt?
Yeah, no, I would say that's exactly what I've seen and felt. I mean, the pastors I engage with, the pastors I talk with, they're all slammed busy. They're all have a million things on their plates. And I think everybody looks to them to be the person that fixes and solves everything. And so if you are a pastor listening, it's like, bro, I get it. That's a lot. That weight is heavy. And then on top of that, you're going to get a call from this random dude named Nick Liberto from the sextalk.com. And he's going to say, hey, I got another thing for you to do. let's get your families plugged into the sextalk.com so we can help your parents protect their kids.
Yeah.
And I personally experience a like, oh, okay, that's a lot. What's this topic? It's taboo. Can we go there? Can we even talk about this? And so I will say it's definitely a bit of a quagmire. It's definitely a bit of a hot topic. And so, you
But
know,
if you're in a quagmire, first step is to recognize you've got a problem, right? Like,
yes,
this is reality.
yes,
The worst thing would be to say, uh, there isn't a problem. The worst thing to say, my kids are totally fine. My kids don't have any questions. My kids aren't being asked questions. My kids aren't being told answers to questions that they didn't ask. I mean, like, to say that I'm not uh, at risk of all these things threatening my ministry, that's really God's ministry. How do I steward this well? And part of stewardship is being aware of, doing a SWOT analysis. Here's some risks. Um, Pretending like there's not a problem is not the solution.
And I would say, thankfully, in my tenure, so I've been running a purity ministry now for 8 years as the executive director. When I first started, Andrew, I would get a couple
Oh,
people
sure.
that would say, hey, we don't struggle with that. Hey, that's not here. Hey, we are good.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord. I no longer hear that.
Yeah.
At least now I hear, you are right. This is a big deal. This is everywhere. This is huge. And I'm kind of curious if there's another hurdle that we just have to go through with time and culture where it's like, but now we still don't know what to do with it. We can acknowledge there's a dragon in the room eating people, but we really aren't sure how to take care
That's
of it, how to tackle it. It's such a big problem.
yeah, I think, one thing that was really helpful for me, Pete Scazzaro has the book and the ministry, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality.
Yeah, very good curriculum.
Just the idea that our emotions, maybe they're not always reliable, but they are real. And being aware of our emotions and being aware of our feelings, that I think has been a huge hurdle for me and in my Christian community to say, let's be sensitive to how we're feeling right now. Um, but I think, looking about 8 years ago, I think Barna came out with a study that said, even with like church leaders, pornography is a real and active struggle for many church leaders, as maybe as much as 20% of pastors almost a decade ago, according to Barna, were struggling, actively struggling, like not struggling and winning, but this is a constant, regular challenge that I need to have repentance and accountability and restoration with. And if the pastors are struggling with this, surely the secular principles, surely daycare workers, uh, this is an endemic.
It is, and the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning, and I know you're equally passionate about this because you have little ones, is the endemic nature of this darkness, the way that this has saturated our culture, our world, the church. Man, I wanna live in a world where kids can grow up getting a biblical sexual ethic from their parents, scripture, and the Bible so they can not have my story, right? Like, I wanna see, like, all of our work, average age of exposure to hardcore pornography is now 8 years old.
Yeah.
The sexual abuse statistics in young children is off the charts. And so what would it look like if we could usher in a generation where our children don't have that narrative? And that's what I'm so excited about with this conversation, with a
Yeah.
parent listening, with a pastor listening, where it's like, hey, like, that's literally all I'm here for. I have no agenda. I want to see an entire generation of Christian individuals thriving with a sexual integrity that is vibrant and from God, not twisted by the enemy. I don't know. How does that resonate with you?
Man, I love it. I think uh, the the challenge, I think, is it will take a ton of humility. I think so. Humility from the like I just said at the beginning, like, I don't have all the answers. Um, I don't have the solution a lot of times. And if I can start with that, I'm going to be way better off.
Mm.
If I can say, we can go to who did design sexuality. Let's look at the designer. What is he saying? It's so bad in Proverbs. I think it's Proverbs chapter 14, might be 12. Uh, Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, he says, "There's a way that seems right to a man, but in the end, it leads to death."
Mm.
So even when we're like, "This is the way we have to do. This is what we have to do," that will actually kill you. You're like, "Oh, okay, sure. Thank you, Solomon. That's kind of threatening or whatever." But then 2 chapters later, Solomon repeats the exact same thing and says, "There's a way that seems right to a man, and in the end, it leads to death." Um, I really think just the idea of humility and bringing in wise counsel. That's how we're going to win the war. When a war is won, according to Solomon, with multitude of wise counselors.
Yeah.
And so I think if I can bring in more voices and not just my peers, but also who are some salty dogs or some old timers that are not new to these conversations. Let's loop them in. But it's not good to be alone. That's paid for in the Bible, and that's true for me. But it's also true for me as I'm trying to lead my family. That's true for me and my spouse as we're trying to raise up our kids in a way where they're not victims. They're able to bring healing to their classmates, even in elementary school, to say, we have hope and we have peace and we can have joy, even though the world is totally off the rails. And the world is totally off the rails. I think, I think something that just this last, I think 2 weeks ago, just to kind of show how bizarre it is. There was so my daughter, she's almost 9. She had her best friend. She told us she keeps on trying to kiss me, and we're like,
Wow.
and it was just being calm. And I think to my wife's credit, she's like, "Well, what's going on?" And my daughter's best friend is like, "That's just what she thought she was supposed to do." It's like, "Oh, is that? What do you think about that?" My daughter's like, "Man, I'm glad to be your friends. I don't have to kiss you to be your best friend."
Mm.
And so just that is not something that I thought I'd be having, getting ready for 3rd or 4th grade. And that was not a challenge I had, in 3rd or 4th grade. How do I relate to my friends that are interested in having a physically romantic relationship with me? But I think saying there's another way that we don't have to do this to be best friends. There's a way to manifest friendship. I think that's that's not always the secular perspective.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I would say what you guys have, man, that's so beautiful that she was able to come to your wife and say that, because some of the stuff we're encouraging parents is literally what you just said. It's, hey, I need to like shake you by the shoulders, mom who's listening and dad who's listening right now. It's happening earlier than you want. It's happening earlier than you hope. You could be the best parent in the world and have all the filters and all the digital protection solutions. And your 9-year-old could still experience her friend wanting to kiss her. And guess what? She needs somebody to process that with. She needs to know what the truth is. How did God design men and women? When is kissing okay and not okay? Like,
Yeah.
dude, that's the beginning of the sex talk with a 9-year-old. That's so perfect.
Yeah. Well, it's the other thing is, so while we're having that conversation at the dinner table, I think that's probably one of the biggest wins in my family is that we were challenged as we were newly married, to make sure that we felt comfortable with the margins that we were going to set up as a family. So I don't think the system that works best is the one that works for you. So I don't think there's one system that fits every family in every context, of course. But one of the things that the family that was kind of mentoring us is they said we've been hijacked by youth sports. And so what we do is only one event or one sport or whatever it is, one hobby per kid at the same time. So they've got 3 kids. We're only doing 3 different sports at the same time. That's the max. You don't get to 2, 3, or 4 sports. And we've adopted that, and that's allowed us to have dinner a couple times a night, a couple times a week. And so we're sitting at the dinner table, and my daughter raises this question, and my 7-year-old son is sitting right there hearing all this.
Mhm.
Um, and he's chipping in on the conversation because he's had a similar situation, maybe not as intense, but very
Mm.
similar to having someone just walking up and trying to kiss you every single day. Uh, and that's not hardcore pornography on an Apple Watch,
Of course.
but it's a thing. And you are really defining, who am I? How do I relate to people? What's appropriate? What's not appropriate? How do I have a healthy self differentiation between people that are my best friends and with
Mhm.
my family? And yeah, I think my wife's curiosity and patience and openness to have a conversation and then continue the conversation.
Mhm.
Um, you can't, you have to be humble, but you also have to have margin to have those conversations.
100%. And I was literally in another episode, and the individual brought up commercials on the Super Bowl. The amount of same-sex attraction, LGBTQ plus ideas, even now presented on regular media, and your 7-year-old, your 9-year-old, they're picking these things up. And so, I like your comment about humility. I think that there's a thread there I want to tug on. If you're a pastor listening right now, the humility posture is you don't have to have all the answers, and you can go around how to equip your body, your families, your children, and protect them. If you're a parent right now, you don't have to have all the answers. Like, that's why we built the sextalk.com. There's other great resources out there. You talked about, and we'll mention Covenant Eyes for a way that parents can protect their children digitally, right? Like, I know for me as a parent, I will say, I reflex to, I got this. I know what I'm doing. But like, I appreciate the humble posture of, okay, I can be confident while still saying, I maybe don't feel like the best expert in this area, or I maybe feel like I don't have all the answers. And there's phenomenal books out there and curriculum out there and free videos on YouTube out there,
Sure.
encouraging parents, Christian parents, to give their children a biblical sexual ethic. And I think, so I'm curious, if you don't mind me asking, Andrew, do your kids, are they homeschool, public school, private school, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh yeah, of course. So, growing up, I did a little bit of all three of those that you just mentioned.
Okay.
And my parents, they had I don't know where they got this from, or they just came up with it. They were saying, "Hey, we're not going to be necessarily a public school or a homeschool or a private school family.
Yeah.
We'll do what's best for us as a family
Mm,
in the season that we're in. So for
of
this
course.
year, or even just
Of
this
course.
semester,
Yep.
we'll do this." And so, for the uh, first year for my daughter, she was our oldest. She was online
Okay.
for a semester, so that was super intense. As a kindergartner, your first class is on Zoom, and you don't know how to read and mute.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
it's super intense. But we, pushed through that, and then first year was in public school, and then we found, actually, we weren't a huge fan of that first school. Just there was a lot of transition to leadership, and there was a school right next door we could go to. So we applied, and both my daughter
Awesome.
and son got into it, and they've just really loved it. And it's been a great faculty, great teachers, and we've really
Amazing.
so we're jumping in public school this year. I mean, foreseeable future, but as kids grow and change and communities grow and change, we'll see what happens. But that's where we're at today.
No, of course, and I think that's the reason I ask, and the reason that's such an, in my opinion, important question. Both you and I are pursuing our EDDs right now, so we're passionate about education.
Yeah.
And we could probably nerd on that topic on a different podcast, and we probably should. But I would say it's worth acknowledging that where your children are going to school is where they're going to be exposed to things that you may not wish or want them to be exposed to. And so I love that you and your wife have this very proactive, engaged parenting. Let's sit down around the dinner table. Let's ask questions. Let's not shoo something under the rug.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that thing that they just brought up that's really awkward. And I think for parent listening who they can relate to you, their child does go to public school on some level at whatever age they may be. And so if you're listening right now, it's like, hey, I want to encourage you to adopt a similar posture, because to take a back-footed approach where you just kind of hope it's going okay, and you're like you really do have to be careful, because when your children leave your home, they are no longer in your protective bubble, and our world is wildly saturated with sex and sexuality. The enemy has twisted that thing so badly. And so, again, back to my point of why the world I want to see and why I wake up in the morning is because I want your little one's innocence protected. I want them ushered into maturity without stains like I had in my story, and like so many have in their story. And so, Andrew, I'm curious, what in your home, what are some of the like simple practices you and your wife have done around encouraging or teaching or training up your children to have a biblical sexual ethic at the age of 7 and 9, right? Like there's a spectrum there.
Sure. So I think, uh, you look at the way that God has raised up His family. I
Mm.
think, um, you've got the 10 commandments that Paul says are like a tutor, like someone someone training a kid. The goal is not that we follow these 10 things, that solves the problem. But I think that kind of sets you on a path in the right direction. And so from a really young age, we've told our kids, probably as soon as they're old enough to recognize that my son and daughter are not the same.
Oh, that's good.
Mom and dad are not the same. We start talking about private parts.
Love it.
We talk about when is it okay to be naked? When is it not okay to be naked?
Mhm.
Still, they're excited. They've got bunk beds in both their rooms, and they're excited to spend the night on a weekend. It's not a school night. Yeah, yeah. Stay up, read comics or whatever in the same room. That's great. Sleep over.
That's cool.
But they have boundaries to say we don't get naked um, when we're with other people. Um, we have private parts that it's not okay for someone to touch. And I think that is, I mean, that's not for forever. Like for example, like my daughter, she asked, well, what about changing in locker rooms? That that's okay, and you can have a towel, and there are things you can do, but, the normative experience is, uh, my body is sacred, and it's got a purpose, and that's what the word sacred or holy means. My body is designed for a specific thing, and to use that for something else, well, that's not good.
Mhm.
And so there's a way I should take care of it and treat it, as it relates to other things and other bodies. So I think that's just some really simple things, but I think a lot of adults, if we just held to that,
Right?
be a total game changer.
Right, that alone, I completely agree with you. Yeah, we have a story. I love that you talk about private parts, when it's okay to be naked, when it's not okay to be naked. We do the same thing. I have younger children. I have a 3.5-year-old son, a
Oh, yeah.
2-year-old son, and a 1-month-old daughter. So I've taken notes from you while also, studying the stuff simultaneously. And so one important aspect that you touched on there that, if you're someone listening is, I think often parents are afraid they're harming their child by exposing them too early to privacy or the names of these body parts. But there's this unfortunate horror story in some of our work we encountered a couple years ago, where if you don't have the conversation with your child of who can touch here and who cannot touch here.
The
Oh, and by the
doctor,
way,
yeah, that's
exactly.
yeah,
If you're taking a bath, if you're going to the bathroom, the doctor, but the doctor can only touch you there if mommy's with you in the doctor's
yeah,
office, or if daddy's with you. Like those are like verbatim the conversations I'm having with my boys. And what you're doing
yeah,
is you're giving your children a defense. You're giving them a parameter for that which is okay and that which is not okay. So when they're in the world and they're outside your home and someone kisses them or someone tries to kiss them or someone tries to touch them, they can say to mom or dad, "Hey, this happened." They don't overtly know it as a violation, but you have curated this boundary in their mind at an early age so they can defend themselves by coming to mom and dad. And I think that's just not talked about enough, because I know in my childhood, I'm curious about in your childhood, there was this reflex to like nicknaming everything and or not wanting to talk about it, and like I don't think that did anybody any favors.
So, uh, yeah, I can agree. Something that I heard that has been really helpful for me is the idea that my kids need to view me as an expert on sexuality.
Yes.
And I would not say that I'm an expert on sexuality. Like, I have friends that are licensed sex therapists. That's not me. I do not have degrees in the wall for that. But compared to their third grade peers,
Mhm.
I am what leagues better of an expert than they are. And so if my kids have a question, uh, and in fact, I tell them this: if you ever have a question about your body, about boys and girls, men and women, just anything. I mean, let me just tell you, your mom and I, we know about everything you can know. And so they can view us as an expert, as someone they can come to, as an authority that is welcoming them to have questions, not be ashamed of questions.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes that looks like, uh, I mean, like 2 a.m. My son will come in and be like, "Dad, I still have to go to the bathroom." And I'm like, "Okay, John," and I'm not mad at him. I got to be
Mhm.
patient,
Mhm.
so that he can still come to me and say it's okay when he's old enough to go to the bathroom. And he's like, "This is the fourth time tonight I've gotten up." It's like, "You're just drinking too much water. It's fine. We'll be okay."
Uh-huh.
But I think the idea of being an expert, but then also balancing that with, you don't want to answer questions your kids aren't necessarily asking.
Correct.
So I think you can talk about body parts without answering questions that like at a level of detail that maybe the kids aren't asking.
Mhm.
Um, so like, my 9-year-old beginning to ask about, where do babies come from? Just really
Mhm.
simple. "Hey, what's the deal with babies? How does that start? Where does that?" And she probably started asking that. I don't remember the exact year, maybe 6 or 7 years old.
Okay.
Like, so am I just gonna become pregnant? How did I even have a baby? How does that happen? And uh, she may not need to know about the male anatomy to the detail that exists, or I could tell her, or mom could tell her, but she, I think, can have her questions answered in an age appropriate way. And I
Amen.
think we have to be careful not to give all the answers. We need to give an age appropriate answer. Um, and if they're like, okay, and they walk off, if I was ready for like a 30 slide PowerPoint presentation and they're like, okay, and they just walk off, like, all right, well, I've answered their questions. I don't need to push it further than they're ready for. So it's kind of a balance, I'd say, in being an expert that they feel safe and not bothering me at all to approach and get a better answer than their friends. Um, but at the same time, I'm not pushing things on them that maybe they're not ready for.
100%. We say that all the time because, like, we don't want to prescribe. Every child's maturity is different. So,
Yes.
maturity appropriate, age appropriate. I'm curious, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot. Say your 9-year-old does ask you, "Hey, dad, what's this baby things about? Baby, do I just become pregnant?" Like, how would you do it if you don't mind? Like, what would you say to her?
Yeah.
That's not, that is the age appropriate
So what
example,
I will do,
or your wife.
it'll sound like passing the buck. It half is, if I'm candid, but like I'll say, "Oh, your mom is an expert on women's bodies," and I could tell you, but she has lived it. So let's ask her. And so hopefully I can give her like I'll text her. She's at work or wherever she is. hey, let's schedule time to talk about this. And I'll kind of gauge for my daughter, why do you ask? And it could be that something has raised the issue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just being constantly curious um, is so helpful. But I think we might need to talk about this tonight, or we might need to talk about this the next month. But either way, I think giving my wife a heads up and not making it a huge deal, but maybe that night, my wife's the one to tuck her into bed, so to speak, and just have a few minutes and just say, "Oh yeah, here you go. Here's X, Y, and Z." Um, uh, and you could say something as simple as, whenever a mom and dad come together, in a special way, uh, that is when, uh you're able to have a child, and it doesn't happen every time, but sometimes it does. Um, I think that might just in itself, that might answer the question to
Perfect.
where she's afraid that it might be an accidental kind of thing.
Yes.
No, it's not. You're not gonna fall into being pregnant. There's a level of intentionality in there. Maybe that's what she's asking. Or she might be asking mechanics, which I don't know, maybe not. But we're happy to have that conversation. And we would definitely want to lean into um resources to say,
Mhm.
probably would be a book that we'd sit down and read with her, or say, hey, let's each read a chapter. Like she's got a book called The Body Book, where it's like, hey, let's each read a chapter and then talk about it. And if she reads a chapter, you're like, what'd you think? She's like, oh yeah. But then that's been something that has been good for her and her mom to walk through.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, dude, that was a perfect answer. And I would say exactly what we encourage, right? Like that you're inquisitive, you're asking the right questions, you're trying to figure out, hey, where'd this idea come from in the first place? Like that's a really important first step. And then you're answering in an age appropriate way for a 9-year-old. And when she's 13, when she's 14, when she's 15, that conversation gets more advanced, gets more technical, gets more, but I think some parents, and I would say well-meaning parents, like all the people I ask, like they're lucky if they had one sex talk, right? And so it's like you really hope to cover all these bases in one conversation for 20 minutes. It's like if you haven't been doing this the entirety of your child's life as they grow up, I feel like you're just dealing your children a tough hand, because in most of these stories, the child's like, "Oh, mom, I already know all that. Oh, dad, I already know how that all works." And it's like, I don't
They
want that
they do.
story. They think they
They
do.
do. And I think it goes back to there's a way that seems right to a man, and in the end it leads to
Mm.
death. And if I can uh, work some of these things out uh, in the context of a family environment, I think that'll be better. I just think,
Amen.
and if I can have 2 or 3 witnesses to establish every fact, I think I've got, so like for my 7-year-old son, he's got a mother and a father who both have 2 lived experiences of what it's like to make a child, to be male, to be female, and he also has a sister who's a little bit older than him, that's developing her identity too. Um, as we're able to have appropriately open conversations, I think it's helpful. And I think like going back to the words, the labels we can put on things where we can be specific. We'll have. I mean, my hope. Can I curse on this?
Yeah.
What?
Anything goes, bro.
Are you sure?
Oh, I'm 100% sure.
Okay. Well, so I was dropping off my kids at school last year. No, 2 years. Last year? No, 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And so my son, he's like 6, and he goes, he's in the back seat, and he goes, "Holy shit! Look at that squirrel!" And I'm like, "What?" And I like slow turn around. I go, "John, what did you say?" And he just said it again. He's like, "Dad, there's a squirrel right over there." And it's so perfect because it's literally a squirrel, but it's a 6-year-old. He doesn't know. He just doesn't know what that word means.
Yep.
I think so much profanity is an opportunity. It's a gift. When a kid says something that they don't understand, you say, "Whoa, where did you hear that word?" And not getting mad and be like, "Oh, that's a new one. Uh,
Exactly.
you've never said that before. What does that mean?" And they don't know. They just heard it. And that's an opportunity to say, look, I know all the words, and I do. I know them all. That's not what that word means. Let me tell you what that word means. And so when I told my son John at 6, you're taught holy poop.
Yeah, right.
Why would you say that? What is that? What does that mean? Did you mean to say poop? Are we talking about poop right now or a squirrel? I think that's just an opportunity to, words have meaning. And as kids bring up things, that's an opportunity that I wasn't prepared for that morning. But if I can pause enough, just say, hey, what? John, let's not say that. Let's talk about this tonight. Like, I can't talk right now. And that's another thing. We don't have to talk about it right now. It doesn't have to be a crisis. Let's circle back.
Dude, that literally happened to me the other day with my 3-year-old. It wasn't that same word. It was heck. And I understand that that's not a bad word, but like for a 3-year-old,
as a 3-year-old, that's the word
like,
I know.
I know. And so he comes home from daycare and he's like, what the heck? What the heck? And like, it's like, he just found a new word and he's trying it out. And to your point, I want to double click on that. It's an opportunity. God is giving you an opportunity to shepherd and to disciple your children when these little moments happen. And so for me, say it again.
And they always happen when you were not ready for that.
You're not ready.
A cup of coffee. Yeah. You slept for 3 hours. You were not ready for that conversation, but we're having it. So we're
having it,
or we cannot have it.
And that's what I told him. And so for me, I loved it because I didn't say, hey, that's a bad word, we don't say it. I kind of went into a really cool, like, hey, you're going to hear other people say things like this and say words that we don't say. But as a Liberto, we don't talk like that. We don't say words like that. We want to be eloquent and wise and precise and like that was it. We were done. And he kind of got it and so equally, it's like giving your children the understanding that they will encounter these things, but we are different. Why are we different? Because Jesus lives inside of us. And for a 3-year-old, like that's a cool, like, let's go deep into theology with a 3-year-old about Jesus living inside of you and the word heck. But I think it all applies.
And I think the idea like, hey, for our family, this is what we do.
Yeah.
Different families do different things.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. And to say, just the idea of like healthy differentiation, like there are things that are okay. You can say heck at my kid's school and not go to the principal. Mm-hmm. But in our family, we don't do that. We don't say that. And I think just the healthy boundary of saying, hey, we don't do this because our family, different families do different things. This is what we do. We've had our neighbors just walk into our house. Like kids that are 6 just walk into my home. And I'm like, who are you? And I'm like, they'll say their name. And I'm like, do your parents know you're here? What? I say, hey, in this household, this is what we do. You need to make sure that your mother is okay or your father is okay with you being in my house, and they need to text me. And I think that's true for, sexual things as much as anything else. I do think so the cursing, it's not sex,
sure,
but it is powerful. There are some words that will change a conversation. Mm-hmm. And there are some physical actions that will change the conversation. So I think the way you respond is in a similar way. I think that's super helpful and that's safe for your kids. But yeah, I just as I'm thinking through all these things, I've got so many people, so many women, so many men, just amazing parents that have said, hey, here's a great book, do this. Hey, here's a great thing, do that. Here's what worked for us. And I'm thinking all the things that I've shared so far, I didn't come up with any of these.
That's good.
Either they were modeled to me or someone told me, don't do what I did, do this instead. Yeah. I cannot encourage parents enough to figure out, or people that aspire to be parents. I would go on a date with your spouse, if you've got one, and say, who are the couples that we know mm-hmm. who are killing it, that are just unbelievable, that we hope our kids would be like them. like their kids.
That's
Either
so
could
good.
be out of the house. I mean, they could be, living their own lives. It could be grandparents whose grandkids are killing it. And I would say, hey, can we take you out to dinner? And they'll probably end up buying. You don't have any money, but they know that. And can we take a dinner? Because we want to be the best parents we can possibly be. And if we could just get an hour of coffee or dinner or dessert, we'd be happy to have you over. Or, I mean, that would be so great. I mean, I
Yeah.
cannot tell you, let someone else pay the dumb tax?
Yeah, that's it. Someone's gone through all that hard
Mistakes.
work. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so
Someone
good.
else's mistakes is the best tutor because you don't have to pay. Someone else already paid for that.
100%. And I mean, that's selfish plug. When we built the sextalk.com and flew all over the country filming 14 experts that literally study this stuff all day long. And I literally said, hey, give me the best tips in 30 minutes you've ever learned
Yeah.
if you had a parent. And then we basically download that into a parent's mind, worldview, practice, discipline,
Yeah.
because we want to give the parents all the things we can so that they can succeed in this. And I got a last question for you, Andrew. So you mentioned this earlier, and I think it's very relevant for our day. And I think you uniquely can speak into it. So for a mom or a dad listening, as they want to begin leaning into this conversation with their children. They want to give their children a biblical sexual ethic. They want to protect them. They want to equip them. They're the best. They are good parents,
Yeah.
but they feel disqualified because of either their sexual history or their current active struggle. Like, what would you say to a parent like that?
Yeah. So that's a great question. First off, I would say, no one is qualified.
It's good.
But a distinctive of the Christian message is that there is none who is righteous. No, not one. And God's mercies are new every morning. And, I would say, you have been forgiven and Satan will accuse you, even though God has dealt with the sin. And I think, Satan will do his best to keep you from pursuing God's best for you and for your children. I think, when you become a parent, the consequences for you choosing to die to yourself and live to Christ, to walk not in your own strength, but in the strength that God provides, the consequences fall on your children and their children potentially as well. So the stakes are higher, but parenting isn't hard, it's impossible. God is going to have to be the one that gives you the wisdom and gives you what your kids need in the moment. But you're not alone. You've got the words of Christ, you've got the Spirit of Christ, and you've got the body of Christ. And so I would say for a parent who's discouraged, I would say lean into the words of Christ. What does God say is good and wise and true? And what does he say isn't? And I'd say lean into the Spirit of Christ, God's Holy Spirit that rose Jesus from the dead. If God can raise someone from the dead, he can help you have peace and patience and kindness and goodness and gentleness and self-control, all the fruits of the Spirit. You can have that. And you are not a slave. You are not a slave. You have the freedom to walk in what God designed for you. And then I think you need to have community. It's not good to be alone. It's page 1 of the Bible. It's page 1 of the Bible. And I don't know what was going on with Adam and Eve. Was Adam right there? I don't know what was going on, but the serpent came to Eve and said, we can't trust God. And maybe Adam was right there. I don't know, but he was talking to Eve, and Eve didn't loop Adam in for a powwow.
Yep.
So I'd say when you're struggling with what is true, and when you're struggling with what's going on, loop in the body of Christ. And I think we can have hope as we patiently wait for God to make things right. And we're never going to bat 1,000, but God can work through our weaknesses, because that's all we've got is our weaknesses. I think for me, when my actual self, like I've had covenant eyes for almost 20 years. Which is just, it's accountability, and it's an opportunity for conversation for who I really am with people I can trust. And my hope is not that my kids would have an answer for everything by the time they leave my house. But I think they would have a way to think through things as we leave this house. So when I get angry, I think, and I do get angry, I hope my kids see me get angry and they see how I process this stuff, because new and bizarre situations are going to come up to make me angry in the future, make them angry in the future. And I think you see in Romans, like the world is creating bizarre new ways to resist God, and that involves sexuality quite often. And so the goal, I think, is not that my kids would have a wall around and be totally safe from every possible thing. It's that they would have because there's new things, always being invented. It's crazy. The world is insane. But my hope is that they would learn to grow in their dependence on Christ, and their ability to be aware of where a safe space is, and have kind of a true north to what is good. And I think that comes through talking about things as they come along. So, but I would say have a plan. That by these different times, we're talking about these different things, they'll probably come up way before you're ready for them. But know that these things are on the radar. And if nothing else, it's a time to have a conversation with your spouse to say, oh, what do we think about? I don't know. And if you can't explain it to a 7-year-old, you probably don't understand it. So that's an opportunity for me to grow, because I don't have all the answers.
Exactly. Bro, it sounds like there's a biblical sprinkled truth principle in there about teaching a man to fish, I think, that you're really tugging on. That's,
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah. I think Jesus said, follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. And I think if we're not fishing, we're not following.
That's good.
And I think constantly we're showing people that God's way is better. One of the most influential people I know, his sexuality was a disaster, and that led him to extreme depression and humility. And then he realized, if there's a God, I'm going to trust you. He cried out, and then God opened a door and he walked through it. And God opened another door and he walked through it. God opened another door, he walked through it. And that's true for you today, whoever's listening. If you will just be faithful, God's servants are not called to be perfect, but we are called to be faithful. So as God gives opportunity, let us be found faithful, and he'll empower us to do it. Help us to see, and help us to do what he's called us to do. So that's what I say. Stay humble, have a plan, know that you don't have the answers, but say, God, help me not to be foolish. Help me to, I don't know what's going on with the stock exchange, but I've got a plan. I've looped in some experts. I'm not trying to figure this out on my own. My kids are more important than my 401k. So I'm going to do the same thing.
That's perfect, Andrew. Thank you. That's literally what I would say too. We don't do any of this in our own strength. God and the Holy Spirit inside of us moves through us, right? Like, we can be generational curse breakers. We can change the narrative to our children maybe differently than the one we experienced. And yeah, man, just thank you for spending time with me today on this podcast. Like, again, you've been spitting truth. And I think a parent listening to this, a pastor listening to this, a ministry leader listening to this, they're going to have practical takeaways. And so, man, we are just honored you came on the show. And if you guys are here, like and subscribe and tune in again soon. Thank you so much.
Welcome to thesextalk.com, where parents can go to get clear and confident to have the sex talk with their kids.
Because I think sometimes we think we're the first generation of Christians who's had to live in a sexually depraved society, and we're not.
We are so glad that there is material like this for our world. We ourselves are often nervous about having the conversations with our kids.
The Sex Talk is about so much more than the birds and the bees or explaining to your kids where babies come from.
In that, we need to come alongside them and serve as a coach.
We only have a window of time to invest in our children.
What do you wish you would have had when you were 12?
We're going to take a journey that might be a bit uncomfortable. But if we will pass through the truth shall make us free.
It is such an important conversation for you to have with your children. And we are just so thankful that it's now available.
What these conversations are, I think, is something that our culture and society need to be having holistically.
Because we do believe that it is life-changing for you, your marriage, for your family, and for your child. We are so honored to be your guides throughout each session of this course. So let's jump in.